What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. Today we're going to take you into a support Titan build utilizing the new exotic chest piece, the Hazardous Propulsion, which gives us those nice little Exodus rockets when we throw down our class ability, creating some pretty good damage buff for us with other rockets. That includes our rocket sidearms as well. So the perk we're getting on that chest piece is called Danger Close, so weapon precision hits or final blows have the chance to load a kinetic Exodus rocket. Activating our class ability fires these rockets, damaging targets with the Exodus rockets temporarily increases our damage dealt by all other rockets, like I said, heavies as well as those rocket sidearms. I have seen ×5 and ×6 for the Danger Close perk with those enhanced rockets, so this thing is very good with that support side of things, creating some good damage buffs for us, especially since we're using Galahorn as our personal rocket. We're going to have Wolfpack rounds on top of the extra damage from this Danger Close. Now, when we got our good old subclass right here, we're going to be using Twilight Arsenal so we can weaken those bosses just in case our fellow Guardians are using Void weapons, as well as we are using a Void Pulse, so that'll help us with a little bit of extra damage because of our class item, and on top of that, that weakening abyss that we have inside of our artifact. Now for abilities, I threw on Rally Barricade just because with the rockets, having the big barricade seems like it's a little bit of a bad idea, especially with fellow teammates. If they're not paying attention, they're going to shoot your own shield on accident, kill themselves in on that explosion instead of letting it go right over top with the rally. So we're going with that with Strafe Lift for me. Now we are going to be using Frenzy Blade with Pulse Grenade as well as Knockout to get our health back on those melee defeats, Consecration so we can get that Ignition Scorch to spread. We're going to get 3 of them as well because of Frenzied Blade, so we're going to have Strand Tangles, Jolt on the arc targets as well as those Ionic Traces, and some of those fire sprites on top of that. Now for our fragments, we're going to use Facet of Balance right here, so defeating targets with light damage grants us melee, defeating targets with darkness grants us grenade, so a little ability spam for us in these 2 slots. Top of that, Facet of Honor right here, collecting elemental pickups or destroying a tangle grants transcendent energy of the same type, so with all the elemental pickups, like I said, tangles as well as void breaches, fire sprites, and ionic charges, we're going to get some of that transcendent pretty quickly. Facet of Awakening right here, rapidly defeating targets with light, darkness, or our super grants us elemental pickups, so that is where a bunch of those pickups are coming from, which will feed back into our Facet of Honor. On top of that, Facet of Ruin right here, we are personally using it for that build side of thing with the ignitions because we're getting pretty big ignitions already from Consecration, but this Ruin will make it even better in my personal opinion. Last but not least, we got that Facet of Dominance, so our Arc Grenade right here is going to jolt targets, allowing us to clear ads a little bit more easy, as well as jolt those Overload champions, which are definitely a pain for basically any type of content. When we move on to our mods and stats, I went with Resilience so we could get our shield back, of course, to proc those Exodus rockets. I went with Discipline because I want to jolt targets as much as I can with those grenades, and then Strength as my third option because I want Consecration as much as I can. I'm getting health back with the Consecration knockout, as well as some mods down here. Now we're going to be able to create Orbs of Power with our Strand weapons as well as our Void weapons. On top of that, Reaper is going to help us to create even more orbs when we use our class ability. So when we proc this as well, we're going to get that nice Reaper to proc, creating even more. Powerful Attraction, so when we do throw down our class ability, see how everything's coming together, all connects back to that class ability. We're going to collect all those orbs that we are creating just right to us so we don't got to run around and worry about it. Now with those Orbs of Power, on top of becoming Radiant, which you will see in our artifact, we have Recuperation to give ourselves a little bit of health every time, Orbs of Restoration to give us the ability with the least amount of energy, as well as Absolution to spread that energy around to our 3 melee grenade as well as our shield, so allowing us to spam our abilities even more and proc that Hazardous Propulsion as often as we need to, with 1 just creating Reaper, picking up Orbs explosive power, as well as giving us that buff to our rockets. Now we are going to be using focusing strike as well as boltering detonation, so when we do damage with our grenade or any of that melee, we're going to be getting our class ability back, and then momentum transfer, causing damage with our grenade reduces our melee. Since we got 100 on discipline, just helps us to be able to use that melee a little bit more often with the consecration. Moving on to our weapons that we are using, for me, I went with the call up here. One, because it has slice, that rocket assisted frame. One for all, we're getting slice on this weapon to create some sever and stuff when we are using our class ability, so it pairs perfectly into the use that we have of activating our class ability to collect orbs, as well as get that enhanced rockets. We will get slice to proc, as well as this in general will do more damage, plus we're using this to create some tangles as well as explode those tangles. Now in our energy slot, we got a couple different options. I personally went with the Elsie's pulse rifle here for our barrier side of thing. You could go with the Ikelo's hand cannon, has some pretty good perks on it in the 3rd and 4th column to do those unstoppable overload champions, I should say, because this is for our unstoppable as well. So we got pretty much everything because our grenades jolt for overload. That's why I went with the call as well as Elsie's pulse rifle, because we got the barrier champions and unstoppable. If you're feeling real salty and real juicy, if you will, you could use indebted kindness with the call, so all of your weapons are getting that rocket assist to it just because of how the chest works. So these would all get some crazy buffs, but like I said, I personally like Elsie's the best. And then obviously we got that Gallahorn for Wolfpack rounds, helping our teammates with the support side of this. We're giving them the buff with extra damage because of our chest piece, and then also Wolfpack rounds as well. So we are just absolutely juicing those enemies with this build. Now last but certainly not least, we got our little hunter's journal right here looking fresh. So first off, obviously we got our anti-barrier pulse, our unstoppable sidearm, as well as our overload hand cannon, totally depending on the weapons that you are using. For me, I went with this elemental charge mods, count a little bit less, as well as dealer's choice right here. Since we are using the call, it'll have a little bit of overcharge potential. All of those elemental siphons that we are getting, kinetic weapons or matching our super, create elemental pickups. This is why we're getting those nice void breaches, because Elsie's pulse rifle matches with our super. On top of that, breaking shields on those combatants grant us stability, handling, as well as reload speed. With this is a big one for me, at least, destroying those tangles with a strand weapon creates larger, more damaging explosions. One of the reasons why we're using the call, on top of it being a rocket assisted frame, pairing with this build perfectly. We're going radiant orbs, like I said earlier. When we're using this prismatic subclass, picking up those orbs are going to help us to become radiant, dealing even more damage. Plus we're using it right here inside of the shield crush, but we do have counter energy as well running through the GM. You could see in the gameplay, stunning those champions also allows us to spam our abilities with our melee grenade as well as our shield to get that hazardous to proc, with that expanding to give us that 35% damage on weakened targets. One of the reasons why we're using that Twilight Arsenal as well as the shield crush right here, we're going to be able to get our melee and grenade back depending on the buffs that we have. Mostly we're going to have a radiant and amplified on this build, but we will get a little bit of overshield when we're using that pulse rifle get defeats, because it does have destabilizing and repulsor brace on it. So build very good with that synergy of support. One, we're staying alive with giving our teammates that nice protection of our shield. We're giving them the damage increase of the Exodus rockets and that hazardous propulsion perk, as well as Gallahorn spreading the love with the damage side of things and those Wolfpack rounds. Our little sidearm is doing some pretty good juice damage too, as well as creating slice, creating tangles everywhere. This build is very good for that end game. Went through this GM with totally randoms, no mic, no anything, just to show you how easy it is to go through this endgame content with this kind of build. Went through in about 15 minutes with the wording of nothing. Not that it's a super crazy strike by any means, but randos, no mic at all. Only 2 of us using rockets instead of the 3rd because he didn't have one supposedly. That was good enough, but either way, we still got through it super quick. The support was there. It was wonderful to go through. Prismatic is absolutely disgusting, and I love the support side of this build with weakening targets as well as getting that nice big juicy explosion damage from our hazardous propulsion. So thank you guys again for that support. It means a lot to me. Make sure to hit that bell and like button if you guys are enjoying the content. Helps me out, helps the channel out. Plus you guys will get those nice notifications so you don't miss out on any of this content here. But again, truly appreciate you guys. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.